Okay, we're recording. Good evening, Commissioner.
Hello.
Hello there.
How are you?
Good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hi, Sean.
Happy New Year, ma'am.
Happy New Year. Anna, I'm loving that background.
And it's where I want to be right now. So I figured
I was
I
just
might as
about to say that is right where I would like to be, temperature and all.
wishful thinking. Exactly. I was like, hey, I want to be somewhere warm and at the beach. So I'll just put warm and at the beach there.
That's perfect.
Complete with the coffee cup on the coffee table back there that I wish I was drinking tea out of.
Right.
Yeah. Turn that off. I turned on my alarm so I wouldn't. It's funny getting back into the swing of things. I've been really, it's so hard because I think I got used to my time being a little more flexible over the break, and then
Sure.
I've been late to several meetings where I've just gotten going doing my like work and email or whatever I'm doing, and I look up and I'm like, oh my God, you know, it's like, so I had to start setting alarms for myself.
I know what you mean. I can identify.
So the only modification, the request modification of the agenda today is to move the good food purchasing update to the first discussion item.
Okay.
That'd be the only thing that I have for your attention.
Okay.
Commissioner, I don't know if Tammy was able to reach you, but I had put in a request that they reach out to you. I have another meeting this evening. Would we still have quorum? Is everyone going to be here, and will we still have quorum? I have a hard stop in an hour.
Well, we won't be voting on anything anyway because we're
Okay.
online.
Okay.
So if you need to duck out at an hour, then you can duck out.
Okay.
My hope is that we would be done, you know, by 7 at the latest anyway, so we wouldn't go too far after that hour time.
Okay.
period. I don't think there's a lot. I mean, we have a lot of little updates. It depends on how long, I guess, GFPP goes. But I think, you know, I think next month will be a bigger conversation as we're
Sure.
looking at, so as we get a little bit deeper into hopefully healthy food market stuff and school boards update on GFPP and things like that. So the staff have had time to get back and get their feet back under them and get things moving again. So
Right.
yeah, that'll be fine.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hopefully we have other folks show up. I mean, it's still early. We still got a couple.
Right.
No one else shows up.
Yeah,
We'll
we
just
got 2 minutes.
got 2 minutes. So
Yeah, they're getting back into the swing of things too.
Yeah, for sure.
Their reminders are probably going off right now.
Mhm.
how are things going with the youth side of things over there? Is that getting up and running? And
Well, so you mean the Youth Services Department?
mhm.
My last conversation with Roxy, things were starting to move in a really good direction. I pulled her into a conversation with Commissioner Ariola just before the break, because I'll actually be leading a conversation tomorrow about cultural hubs and cultural arts centers and their ability to reduce poverty and gun violence. So there's some data that states that, and I can see how the services that our new youth services division are providing could operate out of the space that that could possibly be available to us to do our work out of. So Roxy has been on it. She's been on it. She's been doing a really good job of fleshing things out, really putting some good definitions to the work. And I think we're going to have something that's going to be meaningful and beneficial by the time everything is up and ready to roll out.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's great. It's great
I'm
news.
excited. I'm excited. Yeah. our youth, they're asking us for stuff.
I know, they're ready. They want it. They're
They
pushing.
want it, and they deserve it. We've now got some resources where we can provide it. So I'm just looking forward to finding some support tomorrow, in particular, to getting some things funded to continue to provide those resources they need.
Awesome. Well, if there are ways that I know, with Cuskawilla, we're going to have a lot of opportunity in terms of physical space to do some cool outdoor stuff and
Yes.
programming and all of that. And it'd be great to tie the two together. So please keep me in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
For
Where is
future.
that, by the way? I know we got to get started, but where are you all in the process with that?
Well, we still don't have our other members, so we're good. These are staff. Not that we don't need staff. We need you all very much, Kathleen and Bob and Sean. It is on south on 441 between here and Micanopy.
Mhm.
It's on a lake and it has a pool.
Yes.
And it has camping facilities and a ropes course, and it's really a cool spot. And we ran summer camp last year successfully. I mean, it was a little rough, but with the Children's Trust and funding from donors, we were able to offer it free of cost for young people, and hoping to have overnight camping this year.
Yes.
So in the
Nice.
summer, and then, but I think it could be really useful for even after school programming or, weekend type programming.
We definitely need to talk. We definitely need to talk, because I like that idea, and I've been approached by some folks in the community with some different ideas. So yeah, I'm glad we still have that amongst our assets. And
Yeah,
we can certainly talk about some ways to work on and partner on some
great.
things.
Well, we're investing in it in big ways. So I want to see it utilized to its, highest and greatest use. So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
all right. Hi, Dr. Fuentes.
Hi,
Hello, good
everyone.
Ruby,
Good to see
Kathleen,
you all.
Happy New
Bobby.
Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you.
Hmm?
I said thank you. You too. Happy New Year.
Did you say something, Vilma? No.
I think it was a general greeting.
All right, we'll wait on at least. Now we have let's see, how many? We have Catherine and Mary and Raina. Who else is missing? That's it, right? I never can, I think I could keep track of this by now, but
We don't have Commissioner Sacco yet, Commissioner
Alfred.
Alford.
Commissioner Alford's mom is in hospice and in her has ceased eating. And so she's very likely not going to come. I know that there's a good chance that she's with family right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't come, but if Raina and Catherine. Do you know if Catherine RSVP?
I didn't get a response. I'm sorry. Oh, whoop, here we go. Here's Dr. Campbell now.
Hi, Dr. Campbell. Oh, she's still connecting to audio, but she can probably hear us. Hi, Carissa. Hi, Dr. Campbell. All right, well, we have 4 of our 6 illustrious members, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started in the interest of time. And if Raina can join us, that would be great. So quickly, this is just a workshop. We won't be voting on anything since we are online. But next month, hopefully we'll be able to be in person, because I think we'll have more robust updates and possibly some options. I don't know for sure, but I'd like to have us in person next month if we can. But for now, I guess I don't normally do a roll call. Do I need to do roll call?
I usually just record it, Madam Chair.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we're just going to be going through kind of some updates on the programs and the projects that are out there. And in the interest of guests that we have, Colleen from the Good Food Purchasing Program to talk today, I'm going to move that to the top of the agenda if everyone is okay with that. And with that change, I guess I would ask that we approve the agenda, even though it's administerial, since we aren't fully, but since it's a workshop, is everyone in agreement with the agenda or anything to add?
Agreement.
Okay, anything to add? Anybody have anything that's missing? Okay, all right. Well, then without further ado, I will turn it over to Sean, who can introduce Colleen and our guests from the Good Food Purchasing Program.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sean McClendon, Economic Development Manager and Food System Manager for Alachua County. I'm pleased to introduce Colin McKinney, and forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Zainab Pixel. Did I get that right?
Zainab Pixler, but very close.
Pixel. I'm sorry. I in my messages I had pixels, so maybe it cut off in the email. I beg your pardon. Of the Good Food Purchasing Program, and they're going to give 3 points: a short review of the timeline for our food purchasing efforts, an overview of our participation process, and finally an update of how we're interacting with the sheriff. And so with that, I'll turn it over to our guests to give that overview. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here. We're excited.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Sean. And I'm going to share my screen with a few slides. If I don't know if I need administrative access to do that or not. Let's see. All right, can you see my screen with the Alachua County implementation update slides? Great. So thanks again for inviting us to provide an update on the implementation of the Good Food Purchasing Program today. As Sean mentioned, my name is Colleen McKinney, and I am the Director of Engagement at the Center for Good Food Purchasing. And in that capacity, I work with partners, including city and county staff in cities or regions where we work across the country who are tasked with implementing a Good Food Purchasing Program commitment, as well as community partners that we work with in a multitude of regions who are supporting adoption and implementation of the Good Food Purchasing Program in their communities. I've worked with Sean McClendon and Carissa Raskin over the last year to support the city and county's initial implementation, conversations, and next steps. And I'd also like to allow Zainab to introduce yourself further in your role at the center.
Hello, everyone. Zainab Pixler with the Center for Good Food Purchasing. I'm an analyst on the team. I work with institutions like Alachua County Sheriff's Office and Alachua School Board to collect their food purchasing data, analyze it, and then put together the beautiful reports that we produce for our institutions and work with them to set goals and meet their purchasing targets over time. Thank you for having me.
Very nice to meet you.
All right, so as Sean mentioned, I'm going to start with a brief timeline of the overview of the work in Alachua County to date. So just as a reorientation, this is a brief overview of events in Gainesville and Alachua County over the last couple of years. So we began working with the school board in May 2020 and completed a baseline assessment of their food purchases in February 2021, which Zainab worked on with the school board. In the meantime, the city and county commissioners passed a motion to participate in the Good Food Purchasing Program and encourage other local institutions to do so as well. That happened in December 2020. And then we completed, entered into a contract with Alachua County to complete the Sheriff's Office baseline assessment. The kickoff for that process is for some reason not showing up on the slide, but that was in October of 2021. And then we've been working since then to complete the data collection for the assessment and analysis. And so that's where we, October 21 was the kickoff. And then, yeah, now we're into assessment, data collection completed, and Zainab will provide a further update on the process and timeline for that in a few moments. But first, I want to talk a little bit just as an orientation around what our support looks like for an institution who's participating in the Good Food Purchasing Program. So The Center for Good Food Purchasing provides a wide range of services and support to agencies who are participating in the program, as well as for internal implementation partners within staff within a city or county who are supporting their institutions or agencies to participate in the program, as well as our community-based supporters who are advocating or supporting implementation happening in a city or county. The support we provide falls into the 4 buckets you can see on this slide. The first is the assessment and analytics work, which is the foundation of our work. This is how the reporting, data collection, analysis, and reporting for how food purchases in an institution align with the Good Food Purchasing Program values. The second bucket of work is training and technical assistance, where we support putting that information to work through action planning with an institution to increase their alignment with the values over time, and to support process improvements such as with bid solicitations or other procurement process improvements to facilitate increasing their values-based procurement in alignment with our programmatic values. We also have a couple of online tools and resources that are available to a variety of audiences. One supports institutions in finding Good Food Purchasing Program qualifying products that other institutions have sourced. And one, for example, provides tools for policymakers and community partners to make the case for advancing this work locally by putting metrics around purchasing shifts to more local or sustainable food in the context of the impacts on climate metrics and health metrics and impacts on those key issues that communities are prioritizing. And then finally, we convene multiple peer learning networks for institutions and community partners, including a Good Food Operators Network for all of the institutional participants in the Good Food Purchasing Program to learn from one another what they're doing across the country that is helping support their success in utilizing this framework. So in the initial phase of our work with an institution, the goal and the first deliverable is to produce a baseline assessment, which is a summary report of performance in alignment with the Good Food Purchasing standards. So this slide shows a snapshot of a baseline assessment. This is just a sample, but this is more or less what the Sheriff's Office report, what they will receive will look like. And so I just wanted to let you know, even though we haven't gotten to the point of producing this report in the timeline of the engagement, this is what you will ultimately will maybe be coming back with you to talk a little bit more about in a couple of months. So with that, I want to turn it over to Zainab to fill you in on the process to date to get toward producing this report and how that's gone.
Thank you, Colleen. As Colleen mentioned, we've been working with the Sheriff's Office to complete their baseline report, which will show the Sheriff's Office performance in the Good Food Purchasing Program for fiscal year 2021. In the next slide, you'll see the participation process overall that institutions undergo in their participation in the Good Food Purchasing Program. The Sheriff's Office so far has completed their enrollment pre-work, participated in onboarding and training for the program, reached out to their vendors, Keefe Group and Aramark, to collect food purchasing data. And after a period of revision by the center, they completed their data collection process. So they're currently in analysis. Once the analysis is completed, the center will produce and finalize the baseline report as Colleen showed. And then the Sheriff's Office will move into their action planning stage where they'll set the strategies and targets to meet their purchasing goals with, of course, support from the center. Next, just a bit more detail about the analysis and reporting process. As was mentioned, we earlier this month finalized data collection after submission and review from the Sheriff's Office vendors. I'm currently analyzing the Sheriff's food purchasings, which includes looking at every line item and scoring them to qualify the purchases in each of the 5 value categories that the program holds. The Sheriff's Office had requested food purchasing from their vendors, again, just Aramark and Keefe Group. So it was a pretty rapid data collection process compared to institutions that have many, many more vendors. So it went pretty swiftly, and we do expect to draft report to be completed and shared with the Sheriff's Office in February. after which again, we'll collect feedback from them, see if anything's missing from the report, and then finalize the report and move the sheriff's office into action planning. Thank you very much. And I don't know if there's time for questions, but Colleen and I would be happy to answer if anybody has any.
Yeah, definitely. I think we do have time for a few, and does anybody have questions for Colleen or Zainab? I know I have one that might be more for our team. Sean, how are we interfacing with the sheriff's office in terms of when the draft report comes in and all that?
Well, we have contacts with the sheriff's office, and as soon as we have some information to work from, we'll kind of test those relationships. I think the real opportunity is when we move into the action planning process, when we start to translate the data into, okay, where can we mutually set our goals between the county commission and the sheriff's office?
Correct. Yeah,
that will
especially
be-
with the RFP process coming up in the summer.
So I'm very encouraged by the rapidity of the participation. I know it took us a bit to kind of get over the hump to the point where we could have the conversation we are now. But because of the rapidity of the information coming to us, I think that bodes well for future conversations.
Great. Well, for this board's information, my hope is that if we can get a hold of the report, as soon as it's sort of available, that it'll provide us an opportunity to review that report and then put forward as this committee sort of some of the things that we see in there as things we feel like make sense for a focus for the jail with regards to procurement from our perspective that would benefit our community and the goals that we have, and the commission obviously will weigh in on that as well. And then we'd be able to have a conversation with the sheriff's office because they're going to be going out for an RFP on their food service contract this summer. And so the hope is that what we can do is provide some feedback based on what we're seeing in this report on what we'd like to include in that RFP with regards to these values, incorporating those into procurement requirements for a new vendor for food services at the jail. And so just so you know, that'll be coming, and because that's in June, my hope is that we'll have, or it's in the summer. I think June is what their target date was that's what they were saying back in the day for putting an RFP on the street. So hopefully everything will line up nicely. So far, so good. Thank you all for working so quickly. So expect in our sort of February, March, probably March, April meetings that we'll be having more of these conversations in depth. And it would be great to have you all back if you ladies are willing to come back once we have that report, especially and or if you have any recommendations about other jails or other law enforcement areas that we might talk to about things that they've accomplished or things that have worked. I know every sort of food service situation is unique, has its uniquenesses and its similarities. So if there are other people that you think we might talk to that have sort of a similar scale, a similar type of service that they are using, we would welcome that recommendation.
That's great. And we'll definitely take that back internally and determine who might be best to recommend that you speak to. And we'd, of course, be happy to come back at a future meeting and present more on the results of the analysis.
Awesome. Do you all have examples of procurement contracts that incorporate the values into them? Like, do you have model contracts or model language that you provide that we would be able to look at and review as we're having that conversation?
We do, and that was one of the resources in the resource hub that was just shown on one of the slides that I presented earlier. And so that's something that I can make sure you have a link to the most current information.
Awesome, that's great. Any other questions for GFPP? All right, well, I think next month, we're going to be hearing from the school board about their GFPP update. And so we'll get to hear what another community partner is doing in this regard. And I have a personal goal to follow up with some of our healthcare institutions that we've reached out to about participation in this. And my hope is to have some of those conversations. So who knows, 2022 may be a big year for GFPP in Alachua County. It's shaping up that way anyway. So thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us. It is nice to speak with you all this evening.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too.
Take care.
You too. All right. We will go back to the agenda then. And unless there are any comments or questions about GFPP in general that weren't for the ladies that anybody has. Oh, okay. We will go to food shed map update, which is the second item on our agenda, and turn it over to Sean.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you recall, we made significant progress with getting a base level of information into a draft, a working regional food shed map. Our GIS team has that information. They're working on converting that data set into our user interface now. And I'm sure this is their top priority project. I don't have a model to show you just yet, but they are working on it as we speak. And I hope to have an update very soon that I can show off again and brag on them.
And is it the GIS folks in our growth management area or in
And growth
growth
management.
management? Okay. And how is this, a question I have is, how is this interfacing with the cities? Like you all have, I know that there was some conversation early on about your MyGNB app and some of those other pieces. Do we have any sense yet of how we'll interface the two community websites, resources as we build this thing out, or not yet?
I'm probably not the best person to ask that level of technical detail, but one of the prerequisites that we talked about in terms of the data that we have is to make it universally accessible. So that both on the user interface of the website that we manage and take care of within our GIS shop, that it can be mined by people with maybe a higher degree of mapping expertise, but also be able to utilize more at the consumer level on an iPhone of some kind or Android device. But also the underlying data can be used by other programs like MyGNB. So it could be exported and then hopefully also improved. Data can flow both ways. But I'm not a database expert nor a user interface person, but that was part of the vision and the scope of this. And we still have some points to work through as we improve the overall tool set.
Okay. Carissa, where does MyGNB live? Is that a growth management? Who manages their Department of Doing? Who manages MyGNB for you all?
SI does.
That's you all. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
we used to have a resource finder that we were going to align to some of this kind of similar effort, but that has since passed us by because there's another private group out there that's doing that. But depending on how Sean's team gets the food shed map, we're happy to link it up to MyGNB. We do that with other things. It just points to it. So that's possible, assuming it's mobile friendly and it works and all that kind of stuff. So we do that already now for RTS, bus maps and things like that. So we're happy to be another resource to point stuff to, assuming it all would work. But yeah, happy to talk about that once it gets a little farther down the line.
Okay.
And just to follow up on that point, Sean, do you have any information about how, if we have additional information that could plug into the resource map? I know that the initial data input was done by GeoPlan based on what the Food Systems Coalition had compiled. But I think, as we learn about more resources, and certainly COVID has caused a lot of our organizations to update their hours and offerings. And so wanting to make sure the data that's out there is the most relevant to people. How do we go about providing those updates to be integrated into the food shed map?
So we have the biggest lift that GeoPlan did for us is to create the data framework. And that data framework was designed to be updated. You're asking the non-data expert to define how the system works. So this is dangerous territory for us all right now. But the whole idea is that, you know, that data over time gets used and improved, both kind of in mass, if it's sifted, sorted, and grouped properly, but also at an individual level, so that if a farmer or a retailer wanted to edit their information, say their business hours or their offerings, they would be able to do that as well. But the kind of the big blocks of data to improve, once we have the framework in place, it should be a process. I don't know if it's an easy process or a hard process, but it should be a process to just update that information because we now have that data structure.
And we have, I think, have at least had conversations, if not sort of about the long-term maintenance and management of it, and sort of like, you know, because there'll be some necessity for our team to continuously sort of check in on it, you know, make sure the data that's entered doesn't get entered in, like, you know, the Red Sea or, you know, wherever, instead of the right, you know, it gets the right geo points, that it has the right information, make sure nobody puts weird stuff in there. So there'll be some management. And I think that maybe in the initial phases, once it is up and ready, one of the first steps might be sending it out to all of our partners that know a lot about this, including the key people from the Food Systems Coalition, to kind of review. And if there are sort of a massive updates, rather than having each individual go in and do it, we might be able to do that in like a sweep once sort of the structure's built, I would imagine.
That is part of the overall project timeline, to have that beta moment of the site so that we can look at it and do some final quality control over the information.
Cool. All right. Any questions? More questions about the map? All right, Healthy Corner Store updates. I know Deirdre's been out, and we didn't really have anything set for this time frame for things to kind of be done. So I don't know if there even is an update at this point, because we're sort of in sort of a phase of holding pattern. But I just wanted to check in if there is.
We will be coming back, Madam Chair, in February with an update to the timeline. The process itself is still moving forward the way we envision, but it's just a matter of when do we begin that work. And so definitely don't want to get started without Dr. Houchin being here.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, Dr. Houchin is out on leave right now, so hopefully she'll be back with us at the end of the month and we'll be able to get that moving. All right, community grocery update. Carissa.
So sure, I am happy to provide an update on the community grocery store proposal that was being reviewed and vetted by the city. I think it was determined in our recent city commission meeting last week that that project is no longer going to be moving forward after a robust due diligence process and decision by the city commission based on staff recommendation. That project will not be moving forward with the developer who had brought that unsolicited proposal. However, the city is undergoing a process for developing a process to better address and manage when unsolicited proposals do come before the city, whether that be for a grocery store or any other manner of project. With that decision having been made, there was initial discussion amongst the commission, as I'm sure Commissioner Duncan Walker could share if interested, that there was the beginnings of discussion of, well, what next? What do we do next? And I think that conversation was a little bit too early to happen at that particular meeting. And so I will be providing an update at an upcoming GPC meeting regarding all manner of food access initiatives that the city is currently working on. Things that we have completed, things that are currently underway, and further opportunities to explore, many of which offer opportunities between city and county collaboration. So I'll be happy to provide an update on that at a future GPC meeting, likely towards the end of February. But for this particular grocery store initiative, that project is not on pause anymore. It's just not happening.
Okay. Before I ask other questions, Commissioner Walker, did you want to share anything on that front?
Yeah, thank you for that, Commissioner Frizia, and thank you, Carissa, for that detailed explanation for anybody who may not have been aware of the process. I would just say that that is the need for process obviously was a conversation that we had been having from the beginning. And we are at a place now where laying the necessary foundation for us to be able to entertain these types of processes where the city is. So for that, I'm excited. I'm big on process and making sure that we're able to be accountable, particularly since we're dealing with the people's money. Clearly, the need still exists. And I have been reached out to by a few people who still have interest. So they're waiting for the process. They are waiting with bated breath almost, because they're still very, very much excited about being able to provide access to food in that particular space, and are just simply waiting on the city to arrive at their process. But please know that this is in no way a dead issue. It is in no way something that we have no interest from potential developers on. There are people who are waiting in the wings for us just to arrive at the process that we need.
Okay. Great. Well, I'll just, for my part, I'll just say, when this came, this came forward as a joint motion by myself and Commissioner Gail Johnson when she was still in office. And it was very, when we brought it forward, it was very much the recognition of the need for, a grocery store in the east side of Gainesville, and a recognition that that was necessary. It wasn't at all a commitment to a process of any sort, except for that we did actually ask for a robust community engagement process. And so I think that I'm excited to hear that process is being considered, and I'm excited to hear it's not dead, because I do still, I think all of our commissioners were very enthusiastic at that meeting about collaboration and partnership. And I think we sort of agreed that it made sense with you all having the CRA and the majority of that sort of the service area for this grocery store being within the city, for the city to take the lead on that. But I think there's still a very real interest from our commission on, and I don't have my other commissioners here so I'm a little bit speaking on their behalf, but on this project and the opportunity for collaboration as it continues to get into the implementation phases. And so we'd love to be kept in the loop, and definitely, Carissa, if you can let this board know when you're going to be doing that presentation, when it's on the GPC agenda. So we might watch that meeting if we want and listen in. That would be, so you don't have to recount everything or at least for some of us, that would be great. We would much appreciate that.
Absolutely, will do.
Awesome. I guess a quick question on that. You mentioned that location, Commissioner. Are you all is there a conversation about that specific location, the location at the original grocery store, or are you all just still or in conversations just about grocery stores on the east side in general?
Well, when I mentioned that, Commissioner, I was saying that the individuals that have reached out to me about having interest, meaning developers wanting to put a grocery store there, they are interested in that specific location, and it makes sense because it's already outfitted for that. So that's, that's the level of interest, and it's kind of in a prime location. So yeah, that was my comment about that.
I gotcha. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions about the grocery store? Okay, we've talked about good food purchasing program, so we're update of plant of the month. Unfortunately, our champion, Commissioner Alford, is not here, but I believe our plant of the month is onions. Am I right? It is onions. I'm 90% sure it's onions. I should know this, but yes, I believe it's onions. I'm going to look right now. But we did strawberries, and we've done collard greens, and we did collards first, then strawberries, and then radishes. And now I think we're on onions. Or maybe I did that backwards. Maybe it was onions and then strawberries, and now it's radishes. I don't know. Anyway, we are rocking and rolling with the plant of the month. And I think there is some conversations afoot about the possibility of a commissioner cooking class at the extension office. So if any city commissioners are interested in being part of a commissioner cooking class and teaching recipes, not you, we'd love to have you, but we're hoping to pull that together for the new year, do some cooking classes utilizing our plant of the month as well as other local food products and featuring those. So more on that to come. All right. Wow. Well, we got through that quick as a whistle. Does anybody have any new business or announcements or any other things they'd like to share with the group? If not, I'll open it up for public comment. Because we have at least one member of the public joining us.
I'd like to share something.
Awesome.
So something that I think at least tangentially related to that is being addressed by this commission. I'm happy to report that Santa Fe College recently received a USDA grant to help promote Florida heritage foods. In fact, I could do a whole presentation on this, but I wasn't quite ready to do that.
Well, we can put it on a future agenda if you'd be willing to do that. We can get that on the February agenda. If you'd like to give us a quick just kind of overview of what it is, what you'll be doing.
And what I'd like to do is invite my partner, Dr. Sarah Cervone, to do it. But if I could just, this is the official press release that the USDA Farmers Market Promotion Program put out. I don't know if all of you can see this. My eyes, I often, we're really excited. It's the first grant of this kind that we have received. We'll be working closely with Florida Organic Growers, Working Foods, and several other NGOs in town, but more importantly with local farmers markets and farmers. And essentially, this is our attempt to connect students, faculty in the classroom to some of what is unfolding right here locally with food production and food consumption. And so we are going to gently invite our students to do research on the historical, cultural, and culinary value of heritage foods. Some of you may know this best as ethnic foods. So it might be something like daikon radish, or chayote, or nopal, or foods along those lines. And then look at how some of these foods have evolved. So for instance, we could take okra or roselle or watermelon, crops that originated in Africa, and how they have evolved and then been used in different, by different cultural groups here in the United States. So this is a 3-year grant. This is year 1 right now, and this is the time when we will be most intently working with students. Out of their research, we hope to create educational marketing materials that then we can take to organize multicultural farmers market events in town, both in the farmers markets as well as in local farms. We plan to have 8 of them in total in years 2 and 3 of the grant. And so our vision would be, so for instance, to have a Roselle Festival at a farm, or to have an Indian festival or a Latin American festival, where we could always invite commissioners to come and do a cooking class.
Yeah, I'm in.
A particular crop. One of the things that we are hoping to do is also diversify our local farmers markets, perhaps make the patronage a little bit less white and female, and make it more ethnically and racially diverse, and then to also do outreach in the process to especially underrepresented minority groups in the community, to say, you know, there are foods here. I'm going to pick chayote, something that I grew up eating, my grandmother made all the time, but that might be very foreign to other ethnic groups in the community, just to say this grows so easily in our backyard and is really nutrient rich, and look at all the many different ways that it could be grown. So anyways, I'd be happy to share more about that in the future, but and I want to thank some of you. I don't know if you know, but we received letters of support from the city and county commission. Sean, thank you for your work, and Carissa for yours. And we're hoping to plug into other activities that are taking place in the community. For now, all I can say is work has started, and there's more to come.
Awesome. It's very exciting. It's also particularly exciting because many of the crops that are considered heritage crops or ethnic crops are oftentimes crops that are easier to grow in Florida than some of the traditional crops. So for example, something like a chayote or a Yucchina Savoy or an Egyptian spinach or things like that are much easier to grow in our climate and our soils because we are sort of subtropical than things like broccoli or beets or things that traditionally were grown in cooler European climates. So it's exciting that not only will this be promoting a more diverse population at the farmers markets and customer base, but also that it will help the farmers to be able to diversify their crops into things that are more adapted to our climate and our soils. So that's kind of cool too. I love it. Awesome. Well, yes, we would love an update on that. And I guess we'll coordinate with you to see when Sarah might be available and see if that would work for the, and if you want to wait until later in the spring when things have gotten moving a little bit more, that's fine too. We can look towards, the March or the April meetings for that update, but that would be great. Awesome. Any other announcements? Okay. It looks like our sole community participant, it has her hand raised, so I will call on Nancy Darren for public comment.
Thank you, Anna. Nancy Darren. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited, Vilma, about your report. That's awesome and so important. I've been reading a lot about all the connections between industrial food and fossil fuels, because of course it takes about 10 calories of fossil fuel for 1 calorie of food in the industrial system. So this is another wonderful approach to get away from that and protect our soil and water and build food resilience. Is there, with the natural gas prices going up, I don't know if you all have seen the articles about fertilizer plants all over the world shutting down. And so the industrial farmers are really up a creek. And in addition to the floods and droughts and all those things. So I see this having an added benefit. But the question before I got all excited about this was back to the good food purchasing for the two commissioners. Something I've worried and wondered and mentioned to many of you over the years is metrics that put up barriers for our purchasing policies and how we do those procurement and many other things. And I wondered if you've seen that as you work on this much more intimately, that we really could use metrics of well-being that would help us implement more of these local climate beneficial, human beneficial efforts and really important ways of approaching how we're governing, how we're making decisions about ever more difficult or more scarce resources, both financial and otherwise. So I just wondered if that comes up in things like that good food purchasing. And it's something we should, as the public or can we advocate for including additional metrics and try to shift it more in that direction. Thank you for letting me chime in.
Thank you, Nancy. I mean, I can answer on the Good Food Purchasing Program, the 5 values that they're looking at are local food, workforce, so at sort of basically looking at social justice and workforce health, looking at sustainability, so a lot of that is focused around climate change, and less meat, better meat kind of a focus to some extent. And then animal welfare and nutrition. So definitely well-being there in terms of health and nutrition. And then what am I missing? Local food, nutrition, sustainability, animal welfare, and that's it, and labor. So that's it. That's all 5, right? Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
there. So that's not, it doesn't have like it's not like the happiness index or anything like that in terms of providing a well-being metric, but I would say that it does go beyond, just looking at the economic side of things, but also looks at, labor conditions, animal welfare, so and health and nutrition. So it does look at well-being from those perspectives. But I appreciate the comment. I definitely will be thinking about that and taking it into my thinking as I think about how the county is measuring things in general.
Well, and it was more that angle. I know the good food purchasing criteria or the values are very well defined and certainly would make a big shift and tie in well, say, with the grant Vilma just talked about. I'm more concerned about our governance policies at the city and county as we look at donut economics and things that are going to protect our health and well-being and all of our situations as we go forward, our resilience. So it was more in that context of governmental inclusion that would not only look at, traditional net present value and all those financial metrics that fail to capture things that are ever more important going forward.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, I was wrong. Onions was November. So, Sean, I'm remiss.
Broccoli.
Broccoli. That's right. Broccoli is January. Thank you. Broccoli is our plant of the month. So plant broccoli, eat broccoli. Broccoli is growing now. It is broccoli season, although finally we're getting some cooler weather, so maybe it'll actually grow, because ours at the Field and Fork Garden was starting to bolt because it was so warm. We were having issues keeping it heading, because the broccoli is a flower, and what it wants to do is shoot up and make seeds when it's warm out, because it's the cue that it's done. So it was definitely hard to get broccoli this season, but hopefully now with this cold snap, we'll get some broccoli. All right, well, I guess what? We're record time here. Thank you all so much for joining us virtually, and we will have our next meeting on February 9th at same bat time, and I guess we'll be in the Grace Night conference room still. Okay, so at the county Grace Night conference room on February 9th at 5:30 p.m. We'll see you there.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.